3 times a week, an aircraft flies over the frozen rivers of Siberia to the small oil town of Baikit. Because they live in a sort of island in the snow with no roads in or out, the people here call the rest of Russia the continent. But after 2 years of economic chaos, they now feel that the continent has abandoned them. At 40 degrees below freezing, steam rises as the town's heating system struggles to cope. But the real crisis facing the oil workers and their families is that for the last 6 months, they have not been paid. At a meeting of wives, one says that she's down to her last few rubles and can't afford to feed her children. The government says that there's no money to pay many of the country's oil workers because economic reform means that state budgets must be cut. But in Baikit, that explanation is no answer to despair. This is the kind of sight that the end of the Cold War promised to provide. As a team of cosmonauts prepared for launch behind a glass screen, an American climbed into a Russian spacesuit to ride on a Russian rocket. This morning, Dr. Norman Thagard, veteran of 4 US shuttle flights, left mission headquarters at Baikonur for a flight to Russia's Mir space station. The cosmonauts are now inside the capsule, an American alongside the 2 Russians. And for all the problems that still sometimes bedevil Russia's relationship with the West, no one here is in any doubt that this is an extraordinary moment. 2 hours later, exactly on schedule, ignition and liftoff. In an awesome surge of power, the Soyuz booster hurled the cosmonauts through the outer atmosphere and into orbit. Live pictures from the capsule showed Thagard and his colleagues under 6 times the force of gravity. 2 days ago, the Soyuz rocket had slowly trundled to the launch pad on a rail car. Once the crowning glory of Soviet technology, the design is more than 30 years old, but it remains the workhorse of a Russian space program that is struggling to survive.
A Russian army which hails the destruction of Grozny as victory. The ruins of General Dadayev's presidential palace standing as a grotesque monument of conquest. And the lost soul of a population left with nothing. Into all of this helplessness, a small medical team from the British Merlin organization have joined a desperately ill-resourced aid effort.
The first time you come into Grozny, it's bad and it's really quite unbelievable what you see. But it's only when you've been in several days and you realise that this nightmare is a continuous nightmare for the people that live here, that they're not going to wake up from this.
Dr. Rob Bennett is one of the few trying to assess the health needs of Grozny's survivors in their shattered homes. With malnourishment, a lack of drugs for chronic illness and the risk of disease, the task is colossal. And every day brings new despair for his team. This used to be the garden of an old people's home. It's now a cemetery. Since the war came to Grozny, Malika Teshinskaya has buried more than 30 of the old folk in shallow graves. She tells the team's medical coordinator, Dr. Michael Schubert, how all the staff left and she's the only one caring for 32 old folk. Only a few are able to leave their beds. They live in appalling conditions. There's no sanitation, no medical care, and the only food is flour and water noodles. She says the people are simply waiting to die.
The new dawn of a new day and a new week in New York City, but still there's nothing to pierce the horror of death and destruction which still hangs over this proud city like a dark cloud. It's the 6th dawn since the twin plane terror at the Twin Towers, and the morning when the city tried to respond to calls from Mayor Rudy Giuliani to get back to work, to get back to some sort of normality. But new pictures of the devastation show just how far away any normality is for New York, with the financial core of the Big Apple having been scythed away with only 2 stumps remaining. This morning, thousands of people were still taking part in an enormous search operation in a downtown area they call Ground Zero. Onlookers could only stare in bewilderment as massive girders were removed from the scene. Here at Ground Zero, they're still calling this a rescue mission, but the reality is that no one has been pulled alive from the rubble since last Wednesday, and that tells its own tragic story. But hope, as they say, springs eternal, and nowhere more so than here. The rescuers say they won't give up. This exhausted Irish-American fireman and other rescue workers said the scenes inside Ground Zero were too appalling to describe.
Horror, you don't know what's going on with the world, and you got to worry about brothers in there dying. It's horrible. I'm not the same. I'm not the same person. I turn to God and pray every day, and just hope that people are going to be all right. But the way days are going on, and it looks worse and worse.
What's it like in there?
It's pretty unspeakable. What can I tell you, man?
It's hell over there. It looks real bad.